A lot of Grasshopper users think that Graft is the opposite of Flatten. I disagree with that. I use Graft to control multiple data outputs with multiple data inputs. And in this video, I'll walk you through how I use Graft so that you exactly know how to use Graft in your day-to-day workflows. So the problem with the usage of Graft is a lot of people use Flatten when they actually need to keep things separate. When they flatten things, everything goes into the same melting pot. Sometimes different pieces of geometry need different values, especially when it comes to using Graft. If everything gets treated as one list too early, those relationships become harder to control. And the definition may still produce geometry, but the matching can stop making sense. That's why Grasshopper can start feel random, even the logic looks correct. So what I do instead, I use Graft when I want to piece each piece of geometry to keep its own data relationship. So when I want to keep things separately from one another and feed them each other, I use Graft. I use it when one object should receive one value or one set of, I want the data to organize by object, not collapse into one mixed list. When you do flatten, you put everything into one list. I don't use Graft automatically, which is another thing. I see a lot of people using Flatten and Graft automatically to find magical solution to their problem. And I use it when separation helps logic. I use it when separation helps the logic that I'm trying to create. So let's take a closer look at the teaching file today. So I've already created the recipe, the same recipe that we looked at in the example. So we'll create several building plots, assign one height value to each plot, assign one floor count value to each plot, extrude plots based on its values, or we can loft them, compare the behavior with and without Graft. So why I don't do this, I'll grab this as my building plot, this one building plot, and that one as my building plot, and maybe like this. So I'll grab a curve component, right click to it, 1, 2, and 3. So I get my curves. Now assign one height value to each plot. One floor height, we can say, okay, so since we are going to move them up, what I can do is I can get a series component, okay, and the step of the series will be the values that I want for my floor height. So I can create a floor height of 5 for the first one. I can say floor height 1, copy this and paste, floor height 2, copy this and paste, floor height 3. We can make this really big, something in between, and maybe something really huge for this. And these will be my information, right? These will be the information that I'll be providing. So I can put merge here, get this value, this value, this value, and get them as my step count, right? And I can get a move component because I'll be moving these pieces on Z vector, right? And eventually I started to see something. So I see that I have 10 values each with these different inputs. And if I grab a panel, what I started to see that for the first building, it starts with building height of 9, and it goes with like 0. And obviously we can connect this to here. We start with 9, 18, so on and so forth. For each floor in this one, it goes by 9 meters. In the second one, it goes by 3 meters, and by the third one, it goes by 8 meters. We can make this, I don't know, maybe 6, just to have some difference. And for the count, what I can do, I can group this, guys. I can copy this and paste it. And instead, number of floors, we can say, no, floors 1, and maybe I can copy this and paste it here. I can copy this and paste it here. I can copy this and paste it and put this guy here. So number of floors. Let's say we start with like 5 per each, 5 floors per each building. And when I connect this, I again started to see that I will have 3 kind of information. But all these, maybe we can pull out a Chrome viewer as well to see. You see, since all the values that I'm having here for each building, I started to get 5 because if I put 5 as my number of floors per each, but if I make this like you see 10, you see this goes immediately to 10, and we started to get immediately these sides. When we get this guy, you see this goes down. When I move this, it goes up, and so on and so forth. So let's see what happens when I connect this. You see, despite it looks kind of pretty, this looks okay in the data structure, I see some problematic images here. The reason for that is, for some reason, there are some overlaps and so on and so forth. The reason that's happening is because what I'm having here is I am basically using these 3 curves to move them with these 3 different vector lists or branches. That's why it takes 3 curves and kind of moves them with these 3 lists. That's why we get 3 lists as our, or 3 branches as our results, whereas this seems correct, right? But however, I want the first curve goes along with the first information branch that I have. Therefore, I come over here, right click this guy, and then say graft. Now what I started to see that is my first curve goes with this height and number of floors are this. So maybe this is a little less. Can go in 25, okay? And you see the first, I can add more floors to this. And I can add maybe floor height can be really different for the second building. I can add more. And for the third one, I can add maybe even more, or for the floor height, we can make this 15, okay? Second can 10, third one can be 10, but this time, number of floors, maybe 25 for this guy, tops, okay? So now eventually I gain the control. And by the way, this is really important. These values are basically like the first one is this one because I select them so. So if I shift this, set multiple curves 1, 2, 3, then I'll see this. It changes the way that you extrude or add floors, right? Because the selection order is very important. So first one, second one, third one, okay? We can point this out. And maybe we can have a small, tiny point list to be able to understand which is the first one. If I preview this off, if we make this really large, then I exactly know, okay? And I exactly know I can group this, not you. Can we delete them all? I can group this guys. And obviously these guys would be another group. Take them here, take them here, take them here, take them here, right? And now I know the floor height 1 is this guy, 2 is this guy, 3 is, 1 is this guy, 2 is this guy, 3 is this guy. However, they are kind of move along with this, like it says 0, 1, 2, you already know the data structure. And when we are here, I can say loft and I get them all in. The problem with the lofting is, since I started from 0, like not from the 0, I start from the very first floor height, I can go back to this and fix things with that as well. I can cap this and complete this exercise. So if you want to get this exercise file, follow the link in the description and join my school community for free. So if we recap, when I use Graft, when I don't use Graft, I use Graft when I want to each object to keep its own set of values, just like this exercise. And when I use Graft when one building should receive 1 height and 1 floor count, as in the exercise. I use Graft when separate groups need separate control, which is really important. And last but not least, I use Graft when the structure itself helps me preserving the matching in between data I want. And when I don't use Graft, this is also very helpful. I don't use Graft when I want everything to behave as one combined list. I don't use Graft when I don't need one-to-one relationships. I don't use Graft when separate branches would unnecessary complexity. I don't use Graft when the grouping is not part of the logic. I don't use Graft when I don't need to. I don't use Graft when I am stuck, okay? I usually check before I use Graft is what is group right now? What relationship I'm trying to create? Do I want that one value for all objects or different values for each object? What changes I have to Graft because it can freeze your computer. And I check before I Graft. Is Graft helping me to preserve the structure or just making the data more complicated? This is the most cases that I see. It helps because it gives you a chance to control your data easier. I keep also control over the which values belong to which geometry. I make fewer random mistakes and fixes. This is really important because when you master flatten and graft, your control over your definition significantly elevates. The definition becomes easier to trust, and Grasshopper feels less mysterious because really it's mysterious until you understood these two things. So the main idea, I use Graft before I go. And if you are serious learning Grasshopper, book a call with me with the link in description so that we can chat and see how I can help you. The main idea, I use Graph when I want to preserve separation. I use it when each object needs its own relationship with its own data. The goal is not to create more branches. The goal is to create clear match. Thanks for watching this, and I hope to see you in the next video.